Welcome back to my studio. Today's the day when I have to start making some decisions on this painting that are going to really have a huge impact on how it turns out. Up until now, I've kind of had a vague idea of where I'm going. But the big decision I have to make is with regard to these trees, which is, are they going to be light birch trees or are they going to be dark shapes? Right now they're appearing as kind of mid-value dark shapes, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to turn them into birch trees. So when we come back, I'll talk about kind of the process of what I'm thinking at this stage of the painting to go forward. So all of these tree shapes, when I first blocked in the painting, I had an idea that certain of them were going to be birch trees because I wanted to respond to this painting from the image in a similar way as the previous painting so that we could kind of see the same image but with two very different filters and approaches on it. So what I'm thinking at this point is that this tree will be a birch, this tree will be a birch, this tree will be a birch, and I believe this tree will be a birch tree. But I think all the rest of the trees are going to be darker, like hardwood trees, and so they are actually going to go darker than the mid-red of the canvas, and the birch trees are going to go lighter. But then the question is, how light are they going to be? And I don't know that. That's going to be one of those things that I'll play with, having the lightest areas here around the sun, and then I will gradually darken them. But I think they need to be, the question is, do they end up being lighter or darker than the sky shapes up here? And again, the answer is I don't know. I know in real life, because they're blocking the light, they should be darker, but this is not real life. So when you're painting kind of realistically or representationally, you are somewhat limited by the laws of light and the way things actually are in real life. But when you move into more abstract, then you can create and invent conditions. The only thing is you have to be consistent with those conditions throughout the whole painting. And I'm not sure yet what those conditions are that I'm going to do. The one thing I do know is that I'm going to divide the trees up into some horizontal spaces to kind of be representative of, where the bark peels off a tree. And there are also going to be some kind of wedge shapes, dark wedge shapes coming in, kind of indicative of the scars you see on birch trees. The only thing I really know for sure is that when I'm dividing the trees, I don't want a line to kind of continue one of these lines going on behind the sky. I want it to be not a continuation of any other line, so that it's clear that these are in front of the sky or the hills or whatever. So even though this is very abstracted, and even though a lot of things the shapes underneath do show through, I've been pretty clear right from the beginning that at least for these major tree shapes, I didn't want any of the lines showing through of what's going on behind. So there will be some sort of a feeling of three-dimensionality here, that certain things are in front of certain things. But then when you get into these foliage type shapes, it's like everything's overlapping, and it's like we have a number of pieces of glass overlapping and we can see the things underneath. So I'm going to go, I think at this stage, I really need to resolve this area of the birch trees so that I can gauge how light or how dark I want these shapes to be. And then we will see whether I resolve an entire tree. I think I might actually resolve this entire tree, this as a birch tree and this tree as a dark tree. And then once I've done that, then I can start making some subjective decisions. And I'll actually come back and talk about that when I get to that stage. So I guess we're back to the time lapse and me scratching my head and trying to muddle through this. Well, that's enough for today. Yeah, this painting has actually taken me a little longer than I was expecting, but that's usually the case when you're in process mode. Even though this isn't kind of full-on process, I haven't painted this way in over a year, and so everything is just taking so much longer in terms of making the decisions about where things are going. But I'm actually quite happy with how this is coming. The one thing I didn't like this kind of greenish brown shape here. And I'm going to change the colors of that, but I know it's going to be easier to just wait till that color dries and just scumble some red over it to warm it up a little, rather than try and fix it all up now, because I know I've still got a lot more work to do over here. But yeah, it's coming along pretty good, but it's still going to be, I would say, at least 2 more full days of painting. But I am optimistic about where this piece is headed. So I hope you have enjoyed this. If you have, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and share it with your friends. And I welcome your questions and comments. I'm Tim Packer, and I thank you for your time.